Although he had already appeared on tracks alongside Kool Keith and the Ultra Dramatic MCs, Tim Dog was relatively unknown before he released the song F Compton in 1991. Penicillin on Wax is Tim Dog's biggest album to date, mainly because of the song F Compton, which not only upset people from the city of Compton, but upset the West Coast as a whole. I wasn't even from Compton, but I remember thinking to myself at the time, F Tim Dog. If you ask me, Tim Dog was trolling at the time. He was trolling before trolling was even a thing. See, in the early 90s, Compton was it. I think Tim Dog saw this as the perfect opportunity to capitalize off of the most popular city in the world at the time. What better way to do that? Say F them. If you've never heard the song F Compton by Tim Dog, give it a listen after this video. But before you do that, please hit that like button. And if this is your first time joining the channel and you like what you're hearing so far, please hit that subscribe button. The song starts off saying, "Let's get down to the nitty-gritty and talk about a bullshit city," and continues with lines like, "All you suckers that riff on the West Coast, I'll diss and spray your ass like a roach. You think you're cool with your curls and your shades? I'll roll thick and you'll be yelling raid." Tim continues with attacks on Ice Cube, Dr. Dre, and NWA with lines like, "I crush Ice Cube, I'm cool with Ice-T, but NWA ain't shit to me. Dre beating on D from Pump It Up, step to the dog, and get effed up." Some people say the point of this song was Tim Dog being upset at the Crip blood gang culture that was taking over the country city by city. Mainly because of the line, "Having that gang war. We want to know what you're fighting for. Fighting over colors, all that gang shit is for dumb mother effers." I do remember Tim Dog stating in interviews in the past that the reasoning behind the song F Compton was in fact because he wasn't cool with how groups like NWA were glorifying gang life.
I was getting tired of the media and the record companies focusing on NWA, focusing on rappers from Compton.
This song led to Dr. Dre and Snoop famously mentioning Tim Dog in the classic hit F with Dre Day, where Snoop rhymes the infamous lines, "Tim M.U.T., your bark was loud, but your bite wasn't vicious, and them rhymes you were kicking were quite bootylicious. You get with Doggy Dog, oh, is he crazy? With your mama and your daddy hollering, baby." Tim Dog also allegedly crossed paths around this time with DJ Quick, who wasn't real happy about the song F Compton, or another Tim Dog song, "Step to Me," where Tim Dog raps, "DJ Quick, you can suck my..." They eventually had an altercation at Jack the Rapper, a popular hip-hop convention back in the 90s. Quick went on to throw a couple of shots at Tim Dog and the whole city of Bronx on the title cut to his album, Way Too Funky. Tim Dog was also confronted in the Bay Area, where the late great Tupac Shakur had to allegedly save his life. Pac spent a lot of time in the Bronx. Some people would say the Bronx made Tupac who he is today. So whenever Pac was in the BX, he was always around Tim Dog. They knew each other personally, and they were good friends. The story goes, Tim Dog knew it probably wasn't a good idea to do a show in Southern California due to the friction he created with his song F Compton. But he did think it would be okay to do a show in the Bay Area. You know, thinking Cali is big and North and South California are divided anyway. He figured, I'll be fine in San Francisco. Long story short, a brawl breaks out where Tim Dog and his crew had to exit up out the spot post haste. Pac happened to be there that night, strapped up, allegedly, and convinced the San Francisco goons to back up off of Tim Dog and let him exit the building peacefully. Tim Dog's song F Compton is constantly placed in top 25 diss tracks of all time lists. Since the release, incoming responses came the following years from other West Coast artists. Compton's Most Wanted, Penthouse Players Clique, Rodney O and Joe Cooley, and Tweety Bird Loke. R.I.P. Tweety Bird Loke. Tim followed up with his second album, Do or Die, in 1993. The album represented Tim's shift of focus away from confrontation with the West Coast and instead concentrated on hardcore East Coast rap. The album contained a shout out to Tupac Shakur, whom Tim thanked for assisting him when involved in a potentially violent situation in San Francisco. Tim released other projects after that, but none of them reached the levels of hype that F Compton did. Tim's story gets a bit more interesting because in 2011, Tim Dog pleaded guilty to grand larceny for conning a woman, Esther Pilgrim, out of $32,000 in an online dating scheme. He was sentenced to 5 years probation and ordered to pay restitution of $19,000 to Pilgrim. The case was featured on the June 15th, 2012 episode of Dateline NBC.
A woman says she was swindled by a famous rapper. She says the rapper Tim Dog may be up to his biggest scam yet.
Tim Dog reportedly died of complications from diabetes on February 14th, 2013. However, the funeral was canceled and no death certificate or autopsy existed. His family also stayed away from the media, claiming religious reasons as a justification for their shunning of the press and wanting to mourn in private. After Pilgrim alleged in May 2013 that Tim Dog's reported death may have been a scheme by Tim Dog to avoid payments to her, she came public demanding further investigation about his death.
The South Haven woman he scammed believes he may have faked his own death. WREG's Sabrina Hall spoke to the woman to find out why Tim Dog might have done it. Sabrina.
Timothy Blair, more commonly known as Tim Dog, owes her money, but all of his payments stopped when he was reported dead.
A warrant was issued in Mississippi for his arrest in case he was still alive.
He really thinks he can outsmart everybody.
The rapper, whose real name is Timothy Blair, swindled her out of money.
On a fictitious business deal.
$32,000. And she's not the only one who says Tim Dog is a con man.
20 victims that have contacted me personally from around the world.
In 2011, a Mississippi judge ordered Blair to pay her back
$100 per month.
Esther says she received those payments up until she got the phone call.
And I literally sucked in my breath.
That Tim Dog was dead. On February 14th, media outlets including Rolling Stone reported the 46-year-old rapper died from complications of diabetes. Esther says at first, like everybody else, she believed it. Then she did some digging.
There was nothing that you normally find as far as what city, who found him. They weren't able to find any record of his death.
In fact, News Channel 3 used a private investigator, and he could not find a death record for Timothy Blair either. Esther says Tim Dog owes upward of $2 million to people he has ripped off around the world. And she believes his own death might be his biggest con yet.
Well, I think there's a great chance he's alive.
On September 15th, 2014, it was finally confirmed by NBC News that Tim Dog had indeed died on February 14th, 2013, as had been initially reported, but then disputed. A death certificate was filed in DeKalb County, Georgia, putting an end to speculation that he was still alive and trying to avoid his court-mandated debts. Man, what a story, huh? At the time of the release of F Compton in 1991, I didn't like Tim Dog. But as an older head, someone who sees the bigger picture, in hindsight, I appreciate Tim Dog's attempt at shaking up the rap game a bit. R.I.P. Tim Dog, and thank you for your contribution to hip hop.